Recently, I've been endeavouring to break up with emulators and play as much as possible on real hardware. This isn't totally for dirty pirate reasons either. I regularly cover topics like prototypes and unreleased games on my unreleased or unobtainable and Sunday quickie videos, so it would be nice to show the gameplay as authentically as possible. While this is fairly easy to achieve on disc-based consoles, I've started to collect flashcarts to cover everything else. These will likely be from China on a budget, and I'll determine if they suck. In a previous episode, I covered the GBA Supercard SD. There's a link in the description if you want to watch that video, but in summary, it did indeed suck. Today, I'm looking at the EDGB PRO Plus for Game Boy and Game Boy Color ROMs. I paid around $37 Australian with free shipping from AliExpress. Unlike the GBA flashcart, this comes bundled with a high-speed 4GB micro SD card. It's advertised as supporting up to 32GB however, but I didn't test this myself. The SD card comes loaded with 1000 Game Boy and Game Boy Color ROMs of dubious origin, although you can of course add your own. Unfortunately, Windows Defender did detect a virus on the card, or at least something suspect enough to appear as one. This was in a folder of some random emulation stuff, so I binned the entire thing. Fortunately, every other file on the card had a .gb or GBC extension. As for the cartridge itself, there's a 2023 copyright on the back, so it's already much newer than the GBA Supercard. Otherwise, it's revision C of the hardware, whatever that means. Feature-wise, it's missing a real-time clock. Only something like 5 games support that anyway, and there are patches out there to make those games more playable. More disappointingly, however, there is no save state function. Otherwise, it does include a cell battery for normal saving, and interestingly, that's a CR1220 in a holder. It might just be a cost-cutting measure, but regardless, it will be convenient to replace when it inevitably runs out of juice. We can see that because the plastic is clear. I think it looks pretty good personally. There are even flashing LEDs when it's thinking. The cartridge worked with every device I slotted it into. In my case, this was a DMG Game Boy, a Game Boy Pocket, a Game Boy Color, and an SP. Thankfully, it also worked with my GameCube Game Boy player and the SNES's Super Game Boy. So again, unlike my previous video, I can utilize game capture instead of recording my SP screen, which sucked. Let's address the elephant in the room however. This is 100% a Shameless EverDrive clone, which was even advertised as a, quote, real 1001 EverDrive cart. This is running the ancient OS 1, but it's recommended that you do not try and update to the latest version. The creator of the EverDrive, Crix, has made it so newer versions will brick clones. And rightly so. If you want the newest features, you should buy legit. If you press the select button on the main menu, there's a section called Device Info. The cloners have removed Crix's name in the developed by part, replaced with however you pronounce that, but cheekily still has his website and email address listed for support. Otherwise, you can scroll through the lists of games using the directional buttons. Slightly annoyingly, B is the select button, while A will go back through the menus. I don't know, to me it feels like it should be reversed. Simple games load quite quickly if they're small enough, but you'll be waiting a while for ROMs of higher capacity cartridges. Here's how long Cannon Fodder takes to load in real time, which is a 4MB ROM. Speaking of Cannon Fodder, that is a technically impressive game thanks to its FMV cutscenes that apparently slog in emulation. It seemed fine to run here however, and I tried a variety of other games that pushed the Game Boy Color to its limits. Everything I threw at it ran fine, which included the likes of Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, 3D Pocket Pool, and the system's port of Dragon's Lair. The same goes for the Game Boy's side of things. Unusual 3D titles like X and Faceball 2000 ran with no issues. Are there actually 1000 ROMs on the SD card though? Well, I think there is, although only a portion were commercial releases. These are in the E and J folders, which obviously stand for English and Japanese respectively, but what about all this other random crap? I refer to these as lucky dip folders. You just don't know what you're going to get. I first assumed they were full of viruses, but they instead appear to be homebrew and hacks. I doubt Pocket GT 2005 was a retail release, as was the Bible, which wouldn't load. Is that considered blasphemy? To finish off, let's refer back to my original question. Does it suck? Well, technically no. It does play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games as advertised and worked on all the hardware I tried. It is missing modern conveniences like save states however, and at the end of the day, there's no getting around the fact that it's a blatant copy of the mighty EverDrive. So in that case, yes, it does suck.